Welcome back. In the aftermath of 14 seniors dying in the sweltering heat at a Hollywood assisted living facility, Governor Rick Scott was decisive. He issued an emergency order. All Florida nursing homes must have generators and enough fuel to keep running for 96 hours after the power goes out. But as we just saw, many nursing home operators are not happy. 54 providers are requesting variances for complying by the governor's 60-day deadline. In the aftermath of Irma, some legislators are filing bills aimed at addressing the fatal mistakes that resulted in the deaths of the elderly residents in Hollywood. Previous efforts to address these concerns have been derailed by the industry. Joining us for more is Darwin Rusty Blix, owner of the Alderman Oaks Retirement Center in Sarasota, and Cindy Goff of the Fountains of Hope Assisted Living Facility, also in Sarasota. Both of you, welcome. Rusty, let me begin with you because you have written a number of columns in the Herald Tribune about this subject. One recently, you responded to the governor by saying, "Impossible, you have swamped us with your regulations." You obviously want your residents to be safe, but what is the issue you have with the governor's order here?
The issue is primarily timing. I know that there's 4 or 5 different engineers that I'd need to have to do this properly: architect, mechanical, electrical, air conditioning, well, that's the mechanical, civil engineers. All of these things have to happen before we can even do these. And then the rules that we're supposed to meet have been changing regularly along the way. And for instance, we were told that you could not use natural gas, which we have to our property. And so had we submitted our plan as quickly as the governor really wants this, we would have submitted it having to have a big tank. So, well, then we're told, hey, no, it's okay now to have, natural gas.
All right, so Cindy, even if operators wanted to comply with this emergency order, it may well take more than 60 days to accomplish it.
Absolutely. From the research that our corporate office has done, number one, there probably aren't enough generators to be able to be placed in such a time, in this time frame. You're not going to have the staff to, the maintenance, the electricians to put those into play. And financially, the cost for some communities, it's astronomical. It is a huge challenge for all of us with those things.
On the other hand, this terrible tragedy underscored what could go wrong. And there's a criminal investigation that is investigating it, but still there are a lot of folks who are watching this tonight, especially in this community, who are either in assisted living or have loved ones that are, and are saying that steps have to be taken to make sure that this does not happen again.
Absolutely. It has to happen. We can't answer why it happened. We only know that we need to do something to make sure it doesn't happen again. And that's why we're here to voice our concerns about what did happen and what can we do as far as, I know the government's involved, but what can we do to help? That's the big thing. Okay, we are just getting warmed up. We'll have much more on the governor's emergency order regarding nursing homes right after we check the first alert weather, so stay with us. Welcome back. We're talking about the 14 seniors who died in the sweltering heat of a Florida assisted living facility after Hurricane Irma. How do we prevent that from happening again? And joining us for more is Darwin Rusty Blix, the owner of the Alderman Oaks Retirement Center in Sarasota, and Cindy Goff of the Fountains of Hope Assisted Living Facility, also in Sarasota. Now, here's the interesting thing. You both help operate facilities, but they're, Cindy, your facility is part of a very big corporation, and Rusty, you are the sole proprietor of one facility. I would imagine, people would look at your company and say, look, certainly you have the resources to make this happen, whereas Rusty, who's in it, by himself, may not. So why would this be onerous for a large corporation that makes a lot of money to put these generators in to prevent this from happening? Well, even with a large company, you're talking about, a large group of assisted living communities under one umbrella. So we have 4 right here in Florida. So that's a huge expense, and they're all new buildings within the last, 2 years. Our building just opened
2 years ago in February. One other one down south opened 6 months before us. We just opened one in Fort Myers. So we're looking at 4 other communities that are going to have all this additional financial as well.
Some people may be surprised that given this is Florida and these are newer facilities that was no state requirement for generators in the first place.
We had the generator that we were at the very, when they did all the investigation and the planning and prep, we did have the generator that would provide the necessary, which is the kitchen. All the hallways would be lighted, elevators would be working. So we did that, and now we're hearing now that we have to have a designated area for air conditioning due to the heat.
So have you asked for a variance like the 54 other
I'm not
facilities?
sure if they have or not. I know that the corporate office has been working with all of this, the documentation and investigating what needs to be done. Like you saw on this shot news clip that 2 of our corporate people were in our community meeting with generator companies and trying to figure out what we were going to do.
Rusty, I'm going to read part of your editorial that you wrote into the newspaper. At Alderman Oaks, it was out of power for about 3.5 days. We had evacuated because of the flooding.
We were forced to evacuate, and that's another issue. We're on the mainland side of the bridges, and for us to have to evacuate was, it's a different situation than if you have 2 feet of water is going to flood the bridge and you can't get off the island.
Right,
so.
and your residents went to a shelter, but the shelter lost power also because lift stations were without power, and so you eventually moved your residents back to your facility even though the facility did not have power. And again, please explain to the folks who are watching this right now, moving the residents back there kind of underscores the need to have the generators.
I don't think anybody's opposed to having a generator to meet these basic needs, and we're fortunate to be able to buy one. I bought one for $40,000 during the storm. 5 minutes later, Florida Power and Light, which wouldn't communicate with me, turned their power on. But what we believe is that there's smarter ways to do it than to just have to meet a 2-month deadline.
All right,
a small generator that does the basic that they require, and then I'll bring my big portable generator in and hook up and run the whole building.
Run the building with air conditioning?
With air conditioning, yeah, with everything.
All right, so I want to talk about 2 things. Number one, what you believe are the smarter ways to go about this, and also you have a little bone to pick with the power company.
I do.
All right, so why don't we
And it goes beyond the power company.
All right, well, you're not a big fan of Governor Scott right now.
Not now.
Why?
Well, Florida Power and Light failed us in, at least 3 ways that I think I have in another editorial that I hope sees the light.
Basically, that
they didn't do preparation. They didn't put us, they didn't do underground. Secondly, they didn't have a priority for assisted living until people died in the other coast, and they died with a hospital across the street.
Correct.
It wasn't because they didn't have a generator. In fact, the building had a generator. So this solution is throwing money and a long list of new regulations at a problem that was primarily caused because of improper operating of the building.
What's the better way to go about this?
A better way to do it. Now, we had a large generator on order, and we called substantially before the storm to come in and hook up. I get a call. Every generator in the area is in Houston. Okay, so that's obviously not a good way to do it. But to have a supply of generators in a safe place, maybe in the middle of the state that FALA and our organizations would have, to have everybody have a minimum one to keep people safe temperature-wise until that generator could be brought. 3,000 assisted living facilities in Florida, the worst storm that we've seen, 400 were out of power. Why should everyone have to have this expensive system?
There's another issue I want to get to, but your other problem with FPL is that you do not believe that your facility or facilities in general were prioritized for restoration?
They weren't. Once the pressure came because of deaths in a nursing home, different than assisted living, then very quickly we got power, and it ended up taking 2 men a half hour each to get us online.
Cindy, there's one other area I want to get to, because a lot of the legislators are filing bills to basically try to make sure that this does not happen again. And you know, I've read a lot of stories that said that over the years there have been a number of efforts to do these kinds of things, but the industry has pressured the legislature not to do that. So I want to give you an opportunity to speak for the entire industry and respond to that.
Well, you know, I don't have the answers for that. I know that we try to be as prepared as we can. I know that we want to do the right thing, and we've reached out on numerous occasions about issues that we've had, just like we're talking about the electric company. We too reached out to them, want to know if we were on the priority. They said we were, just in case something were to happen. But you know, we're doing all we can at this point to put our voice forward about what we need to do in this situation.
You know, we're about to start in a couple of months a new legislative session, and you know, Florida residents in general, you know, we went through a lot with Irma. It could have been worse, but there is going to be pressure to get the legislature to do something to make sure that this kind of tragedy does not happen again.
Right, and I think they need, I mean, FALA, you know, get some of us who are active in our communities, talk to us. What suggestions do we have as far as the regulations go? Because unless you're in our communities and you know what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, what we have in our communities.
Okay, we have to take a quick break, and we'll be back for final thoughts in a moment. And our guests join us right now for final thoughts. Cindy, you know, people watching this want to make sure that their parents and grandparents are safe in times of crisis like we just went through here. And so with the governor's order and what the legislature is going to be trying to do, what would you say to them in terms of requiring nursing homes to take the kind of precautions like having generators that could run air conditioning, so this type of tragedy doesn't happen again?
Well, I think the most important thing for the families and the residents to know is we want what's best for them. We want them to be safe, we want them to be taken care of, and we want to do the right thing. And you know, if it's going to take special legislation, if how to be prepared, we want to follow those guidelines, but we also would like to be a part of those to help, you know, to organize and to come up with some of the plans as well, to know what needs to be done.
Rusty, I get that you are pretty angry right now at Governor Scott, that you're looking at the emergency order as not as solving a problem so much as covering up for poor planning.
Well, at Alderman Oaks, the buck stops with me. In the state of Florida, where does the buck stop? Florida Power and Light was not prepared to meet the needs of nursing homes and assisted living facilities. Is it Florida Power and Light's problem? Yes, but where does the buck stop? Why was Florida Power and Light not prepared? And who draws the line there and gives them the directions to run on?
And you're saying it's the governor?
I don't know where else it stops.
Okay. We have to leave it there, but before we go, we want to share some thoughts about last night's show on tax reform. The president has a framework for tax reform. He is in desperate need for some kind of legislative accomplishment. Tax reform has not been done for 30 years. Here is what some of you have to say. Christie says, yes, he will do it. President Trump will make America great again. Billy says, trickle-down economics do not work. Giving multinational corporations more money will not mean more jobs. By the way, these corporations aren't doing bad. A middle-class tax cut would boast job growth and jobs created. And Lauren says, yes, there are areas that tax dollars are desperately needed, military spending, infrastructure, etc., but the vast majority of our tax dollars are wasted frivolously. I say put the money back in the hands of Americans. Well, if you'd like to join the conversation about tonight's topic, just visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/mysuncoast.com.abc7. And FYI, you can watch past discussions. They're on demand. They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. And want to stay up to date on the latest local news? We are proud to announce our new ABC7 My Suncoast News app. If you have an iPhone or an iPad, currently
you need to download our new app by going to the App Store. Download WWSB ABC7 Tampa, My Suncoast. It is free and it provides the most comprehensive news coverage for Sarasota, Manatee, Charlotte, Harding, and DeSoto counties. Android users, no worries, you'll get the new version automatically. We want to thank our guests for being here tonight. Darwin Rusty Blix is the owner of the Alderman Oaks Retirement Center in Sarasota, and Cindy Goff is with the Fountains of Hope Assisted Living Facility in Sarasota.